way that you are able to jump in and out of jokes and crowd work effortlessly is crazy, dude. It really is. It's like there's no like, usually something is lacking with a comic, either their jokes are killer, but their crowd work's a little, subpar, or all they have is crowd work and then they go into material and it's like, you got to fucking learn to write,
go
dude.
back to birthdays.
Yeah. Go back to making fun of this guy's shirt, please.
Yeah.
But it kind of ping pongs between the two throughout the special, which in such a way where there's something about it that feels very inclusive, but at the same time, like, I know there's this whole thing now with the way that crowd work clips are blowing up, and that almost seems to be, I was talking about this with somebody the other day, it almost seems to be like the new roast battle. Remember how roast battles were that was like it in the comedy world.
That was how you're going to make it.
Fad. It was like, God, I can't wait till this dies out. This is not sustainable. It has its place, but it's not sustainable forever. And that's the way I feel about crowd work too. It's like, there's more to comedy than just shitting on the audience.
100%. I will say with the roast battle thing is, I understood why it was entertaining and all this stuff, but I wanted it to pass just because it was a way people were getting a lot of like heat from it, or like, again, selling tickets from doing it. And it just wasn't me. Like, there's no way I could say those things. It just wasn't mine. Yeah. And some of the people like I was like they'd be like, that is a killer joke. Like, that's great writing, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do. But yeah, like the people are like shitting on crowd work clips, and sometimes you watch them and you're like, why did you post that? There wasn't anything there. Like, I do crowd work. It's my favorite part of it when I'm, doing a long set on the road, because I'm in the moment and I try to tie everything together. And but I wouldn't post, and I post clips because I'm, you try not to burn material, but I wouldn't post something it's still a setup and a punchline. It's just, but some of these clips, I understand some people are just like, oh, I said that to the person and that's got to be a clip. You're like, well, no, you just had a conversation. You did have a microphone. I will give you that. And there was a comedy club sign in the background. So I understand why, I understand. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I don't post every I post, if I do a long set, I might get a couple clips. I'm not posting every, I don't know, whatever. But people are really angry. I guess I don't follow that. I don't see that much.
Yeah.
On whoever I follow. I guess maybe I don't follow enough comics or whatever. I don't know. The people that I see post crowd work, it's funny, but I don't know. I guess
most of the time it is, but I think there's a whole crop of younger comics now that are trying to, keep up and also be contributing content and posting reels that they don't have that skill set yet, and I think it's leading a lot of people. Here's the thing, like, it's one thing for comics to be like, oh, fuck, enough of the crowd. We're always going to find a way to shit on everything. I think a lot of audiences now are starting to get tired of it because it seems to kind of be changing the dynamic of how a crowd expects a show to go, Yeah. And a lot of crowds now will show up and be like, oh, they're just going to, hey, call on me, make fun of me. And it's like, no, they have the microphone. They've been writing and working on these bits for years and years and years. It's not all about you. So don't try to make this a fucking crazy free for all, just call and response sort of thing.
Well, I had a interesting thing happen. I was on the road. This was maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago. And it was my first night at this club. And I go on and I walked out, and to someone who doesn't do stand up, it doesn't make sense, but you'll understand this. I walked out, I looked at the crowd, I started, and I could tell there was a guy in the front row that was there for me to do crowd work with. He was wearing a really loud Western shirt. He immediately tried, and I, within 3 minutes, was like, oh, dude, this is not how it works. did my best to make it funny, but I like explained that this isn't going to go down, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, this is crazy because I had posted a lot of crowd work. I had a bit of a jump on my social media stuff, and I was told by the club that there were more tickets sold than the last time, and I was like, this is it. I've just destroyed my life because this is what's going to happen now. Because I hadn't been on the road for a couple months or like a month or whatever, and I was like, people are now going to come, but that hasn't happened. That only happened once, and I ignored him the whole time. The show was fine. And at the very end, like I had like one bit to do. I acknowledged him, and he proved my theory because he stood up and raised his arms and did like turn to the crowd. I was like, how delusional are you that people are like, finally the guy in the Western shirt's going to have his time in the sun. But yeah. So I had this moment. I was like, that's it. I've destroyed, like I can't do crowd work anymore. And but that's only happened that once. So I don't really see people aren't engaging me any more than they have in the past. So I haven't seen that myself, but that is the fear, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's a trend. It's a weird thing with we were just talking before we started recording how we're both not computer people. These younger comics, and even like my nephew's like 14, and he's like a really good skateboarder, and he like edits these clips on his phone. It's insane. It's like Scorsese quality cinematography, and he's just bang, 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 and it's like up. So I think it's tough because their skills, like editing and just the way they understand how social media works, might be ahead of where they are in comedy because it just takes a long time. Like I'm not like when you were saying that people are like, where has this guy been? I'm like, yeah, I've been holding back because I have so much respect for the comics that I look up to and how long it took them that I was like, yeah, I'm not putting a ton of stuff out. I'm not turning down opportunities, but I'm like, I'm not posting on social media until I get to a place where I'm like, oh, this is good enough to start sharing. And I feel like people are like, oh, this is my 6th cent. I gotta, you know what I mean? I really gotta clip this up. And it's like, do that for years and then introduce yourself. You know what I mean? Social media is not going anywhere. There's no rush.
It's never the wrong move to be the dark horse waiting in the wings and just fucking explode out the gate and blow people's minds. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I remember and I always think about it, because you're watching other people get stuff and you get frustrated or whatever. But I remember listening to a Jim Gaffigan interview and someone asked him like, and I heard that like, this is like right when I was like beginning. Someone asked him, how did you feel when you did your first Letterman? And Gaffigan was like, I was so ready because I'd watched all my friends already do it. And I was like ready. And I'm like, that's to me, obviously, if you get an amazing opportunity out of the gates, that's great. But there is something very valuable in, having other people do it before you because you just have it in your head that you can do it, And I think you'll make more of it. It's all about making a great first impression. So much of it,
Sure.
And so I my advice to people starting out, if anyone wants it, would be wait before you start. People are posting their first sets. I'm like, that footage should be like in a safe or in the river. Like don't want me to see your first set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a hard skill. No one is great right away,
Yeah. What happened to shame? You know what I mean? We need to bring back shame.
What happened to shame?
Shame of your first 5 years at least.
Absolutely.
Nobody should see any of that shit.
Because like historically through comedy, who was great when they were super young? Like Chappelle, who was, kind of had mastered the craft to a certain extent. Eddie Murphy, who, like he was really young when he was recording those specials, but like beyond that, I'm sure I'm missing a ton of people, but generally comics, it takes a long time, like 15 years. In my mind, I was always like, get to 7. And then I got to 7. I'm like, get to 15. And now I'll be at the cellar and see someone who's been doing it 25 and be like, oh God, I got to get to 25. It's, I don't know. I think that's kind of been lost.
Yeah. And we started out in a different climate where it was just about not sucking. You know what I mean? Nobody was posting videos, like you would try to get tape to send out to bookers to try to get booked, but you weren't just shitting out content endlessly. Nobody had to see you bomb. That was, 15, 20 people were privy to that information.
Or even in clubs, like now every club tapes sets for you and all this stuff. And, yeah, like we would, like, to get a tape when I started, you would have to get, you would have to get a friend who had a video camera to come, and he had a fucking tripod and a giant case. Like, it was wild how quickly, I mean, now people can just tape everything, but I would really encourage people to wait and make a really great first impression.